This is going to be a little different than some of the other speeches we've had. This one's from the Advanced Speech Manual, Interpersonal Communication. And what we're going to do is actually in 3 parts. The first part is what I'm doing right now, which is talking to you about what to expect. The second part is I'll take a few minutes with Janet and demonstrate a little bit about what we're talking about, which you don't know yet because I haven't told you. And then we'll have a couple minutes of question and answer after that. With that said, this is a conversation about striking up small talk with strangers. I don't know about you, but in particular for me, this has been difficult. All of my life, I've struggled with this. In fact, 2 weeks ago, I was at a networking event for employers, where employees go, it's a little mixer, probably 100, 150 people, and we just strike up conversations with people. I'm a Toastmaster, right? I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. But I choked. I talked maybe to 3 or 4 people, had a beer, ate some cheese, and left. I could use more of this, and I imagine many people in this room probably could as well. This is a speech about the starting up the conversation with people, starting from nothing. And actually, talking to strangers has 4 different levels to it. The first level is small talk. It's where you talk about anything innocuous, the weather, the Broncos, whatever. The new pictures that are in this room, I don't know if you've noticed, they're gorgeous. The second level is where you talk about facts. You just state facts about yourself. Hey, I'm from Denver. I live in Colorado Springs. The third level is where you talk about opinions and views. Now we're getting a little more vulnerable here at this point because we're sharing about ourselves things that could have some controversy. And the fourth level, the deepest level, is where you talk about your own feelings and your emotions. It's important to go through these in order. From the first one, which is small talk, the second one, which is facts, the third one, which is opinions and viewpoints, and the fourth one, which is personal feelings. And here in a few minutes, when I talk to Janet, I want you to watch for that and see how well we do it. Janet and I have only discussed that we're going to have this role play example. We haven't practiced, we haven't talked about it. We're going to pretend to be strangers meeting on a street. And it's going to be actually very easy to do because we haven't discussed any of this in advance. But watch for how this progresses through the different levels when we talk. And it's important, as I said, to go through it linearly. I mean, think about how weird it would be if Janet and I met and she said, hi, Marty. We exchanged names. She said, hi, Marty, I'm from Colorado Springs or Woodland Park or wherever. And I said, oh, Janet, that's great. You know, it was so difficult for me when my wife was in a coma and I had to invite all of her family and friends over to say their final goodbyes because we didn't think she'd live through the night. That's a true thing that happened a few years ago. But that would be awkward, jumping from talking about the weather straight to some deep, intense personal experience. So it's important to progress and build rapport and trust as you progress through the 4 different levels. So that we have them again, we'll make sure everybody's aware. Number 1, does anybody recall?
Small talk.
Small talk, very good. Number 2?
Facts.
Facts, nicely done. Number 3?
Opinions and viewpoints.
Opinions and viewpoints, absolutely. And number 4?
Feelings.
Emotions. That said, I'm going to invite up Janet. Now here's the situation. She and I are standing in line at a coffee shop on the Pueblo Riverwalk. And we just happen to strike up a conversation. This will be 3 to 5 minutes of discussion, I hope. We'll see. Hi, you're in line here for coffee too.
Yes, I think I'm going to get some tea.
They serve tea here.
I don't know, I've always had coffee, I don't know.
That would be interesting. Huh. I'm here in Pueblo. I'm down from the Springs, but I've heard that this is actually a really good coffee shop. Do you live here?
I don't. I visited here when I had some sculptures installed, and that's about the only time I've been down here.
Interesting. I'm curious now. Sculptures. Like, do you make sculptures?
I do. I make concrete sculptures for cities and museums.
Concrete sculptures for cities and museums. Tell me more about that.
Well, I started off in photography. photography, then moved to painting, and then I decided I needed to get my hands around something, and concrete's cheap.
When I think of sculptures, I think of shaping something. You see the I don't even know what it's called, the turning thing with the clay, and you're shaping it. How on earth do you even begin to think about shaping concrete?
Actually, I make a large mold, and then I prepare it so that, because I'm not strong enough to mix the concrete,
Okay.
I prepare a mold, and I prepare knockouts. If you've ever seen a knockout for any kind of, it's little things, and then once the concrete is popped up, you knock those out, and there's little windows.
That's the acceptation for a knockout?
A knockout in concrete means that you're knocking out what you put in there so that you have a hole.
Okay.
Usually it's done for sinks.
Okay.
You make something for a sink, and then you knock that out. In my case, I had to figure out what kind of people I was going to work with, who had arms strong enough to do it, and how I was going to make that happen. So I got everything ready, and all I had to do was ask my son to mix the concrete and dump it in. Several days later, maybe 30 days later, I'll tip it back up, and then if I'm strong enough, otherwise I have to give it to 6 college guys.
I didn't even know this was a thing. I'm curious.
I made it up. I seriously made it up. That's why I get invited to cities I can't imagine. This little old lady making stuff out of concrete.
That is, so how do you find people to commission you? And you just knock on doors at city halls? How does that
No,
work?
actually, there's something called call for entry, and I get invited.
Well, that's even better.
Yeah, so I get invited to different cities. One of the first ones was Loveland, Colorado, and they invited me. I had a 6-foot wide concrete sculpture that it took 6 college guys to get on the truck, and then it always takes a crane. So I ended up, after 2 or 3 cities, giving it to the town of Monument so they didn't have to find a crane anymore.
Interesting. How long have you been doing that?
Well, the last 10 years in concrete, but the last 40 years in art.
10 years ago? I didn't even know that was a thing.
That's a
I'm having
small
trouble
thing.
wrapping
My
my head
biggest
around it.
picture I've ever made is 500 feet long.
500 feet?
Yeah, it's a
Wow.
mural in Los Angeles.
That wasn't concrete.
That was on concrete, but
Okay.
it was painting. And I worked with gang youth, 25 gang youth.
So you've worked with gangs then?
I have indeed.
That sounds scary.
They are scary people,
Yeah?
but they're also people. So what happens is once you meet person to person and you have trust, the rest of the world goes away. And they're just kids. Till time's up and then they're gangs again.
Did you have any trouble navigating that transition?
You know, after I had kids, I had trouble with everything because everything was so precious. But
Right.
before I had kids, I went, well, what can happen? They shoot me, I'm dead. But I worked with them and I learned people are people once you get inside the person.
Yeah, no, I believe that. I do.
Cops don't like my attitude. Counselors don't like my attitude. The justice system doesn't like my attitude. But I got 25 felons to work for me. I think that's pretty good.
I would agree with that. Now you got me curious. Cops don't like that? Give them
Well,
community?
I went to a class, my brother's a cop. I went to a class and I already learned about how to work with gangs and that's not it. I said, I've been doing it for the last 3 months. It seems to work for me.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I looking back, had I been a mom, I would never have done it. But I was the last man standing. The Chicanos that were supposed to work on the mural came to the meeting, met the kids, and I was just volunteering. And what happened was, the next meeting, they weren't there. And I said, why didn't you guys go? And they go, those kids are nasty. I'm not working with them. So they said, well, would you work with them? And I said, I guess. So that's how I did it.
So I see the line shortening here. I'm curious though, is that what you're in town for now, to work with gangs here in Pueblo?
No, my goal is to work with art. If they're gangs, I'll work with them. If they're businessmen who work on computers, I'll work with them. If they're people buying coffee, I'll work with them.
I'm so sorry. My name is Marty, by the way.
How do you do? I'm Janet.
Janet, nice to meet you.
Someday, you'll collect my stuff from the Smithsonian.
I believe that. So nice chatting with you. Thank you.
Bye.
I feel like I should. Yeah. Janet walked into this cold. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Want to put take 1 or 2 minutes and solicit any feedback or questions? What'd you notice? Anything strike you?
Dude, you got more out of her story than I have, and I've been a part of this group for what, almost a year? 10 months.
Yeah.
I've been a part of, and I've heard of a 500-foot long mural that you did, and I've heard of things that you've done, but I was never able to get the story of what you did. And somehow this process seems like it led you to a place where you just told the story, which I've just never got that put together. So I thank you. And dude, she's so cool then.
Yeah.
You're like,
She always
you're
was.
like the coolest person.
Well, somebody told me that once you get to know the person, you know we're all people inside. Definitely true. Questions? We down? We're doing a 1 to 2 minute thing.
Yep.
We're cool. We're at the end of that.
Oh, you have 14 minutes, so I'm just letting you know you're getting there.
You're at 10 minutes.
Yeah, 11.
So you got a couple.
Sweet.
I noticed you asked a lot of questions to control the direction of the conversation.
I
So
tried
how
to
do you
steer
come
it.
up with great questions to ask?
So, me personally,
Mhm.
is that a question for me?
Mm-hmm.
What I try to do is try to find some crossover between what somebody just said and my experience, my feelings, my whatever. So she said I worked with gang members. And immediately what flew into my mind was fear. And so I asked, wow, gang members, that must have been scary.
Right.
And so we're off again in another conversation. That's what I do. And I'm so successful at it. I went to a mixer 2 weeks ago, and there were 150 people there. And I talked maybe to 3 before I left.
That's too funny. So, do you normally ask someone this many questions?
I try to get the conversation going. What I usually look for is common ground. I talk to somebody and they mention Broncos. I say, oh, you're from Denver. I try to lead them with an open-ended thing. And invariably, they'll say yes or no or whatever, and then use that as a launching pad. That's my technique.
Did we ever get to step 4?
Did you ever share any personal feelings?
I don't know. I never know
Yeah.
what I say once I go
Yeah,
up
I
there and
think
sit
she
down.
did.
I think she did.
go blank.
We progress quite by
I
accident.
think she did. I mean,
Yeah.
her brother's a cop.
Yep.
He doesn't like the fact that, you know, he's got these opinions that you don't share. And I thought that was pretty personal stuff.
I didn't know what to expect when we got up here, but we did. We went right through them all.
Okay.
We did the chit chat, small talk. We started talking about facts. You work with cities and do art. We got into personal beliefs and feelings that were, or opinions. We got to viewpoints and opinions that you had on people, and the people are genuinely good deep down inside. I think we covered a lot of ground there.
And it's all going in his dossier.
One more question.
One more question.
Yes.
What do you enjoy most about learning this skill?
There's a saying I've heard in doctors. It's learn one, do one, teach one. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I had a doctor friend of mine tell me that. He said, learn one, do one, teach one. That's how they teach doctors. And the idea is that for you to learn something, you learn it. But you don't know it. It's like you can read a book about riding a bike all day long, but until you actually get on the bike, you don't know it. But even after you do something, you know it at a much deeper level when you teach it. So the question is, what do I enjoy most about this? I learn more about anything that I think I know when I talk about it up here in Toastmasters. And people ask questions. That's when I really learn the most, which apparently is the same in the medical community. Any more questions? Well, I appreciate your time and your involvement. Mr. Toastmaster.
Let's take 60 seconds, Mr. Timer. You're on top of that.
Okay, got it.
And if everyone has the sheets in front of them. Good. Give Marty your thoughts.
I think I did.
Thank you.
I'm just glad I got to do it. That was good.
Or 1 minute.
Thank you. As always, I'm excited to hear from Mimi the motivator. It's fun to watch somebody talk who's exceptionally animated and expressive, and that's entertaining. As always, I look forward to something specific to take away from your talk. However, to understand what you are aiming at accomplishing with this particular talk, Sandy, would you give us an overview of Mimi's objective?
Yes. Mimi the Motivator is working from effective coaching, and today's project is researching and presenting. It is her mission, should she choose to accept it, to select a topic that she is not already familiar with or that she wants to learn more about, to make it narrow enough that she can give a 5 to 7 minute speech about it and that we don't go an hour, hour and a half, and to organize the information so that she can present it to us and maximize our understanding as her audience. She is to craft clear and engaging transitions between the main sections of her speech and to use insight sources to support the content and make the source list available to us, her audience members. Thank you.
Wonderful.